Greetings and welcome to the pod. My name is Mark West and I'm currently sitting here looking at the swimmers swim across the bay at Bilgola Beach. And I was wondering what it is that those ocean swimmers do well that I don't. And somebody who will know is Andre Slade. Andre runs Ocean Fit, which are ocean swimming classes at Bondi Beach. I started by asking Andre what the major differences between pool swimming and ocean swimming are.
Consistency would probably be the number one. When you go to a pool, you know that it's going to be the same temperature every time you go, the same length, the same depth. Water quality is pretty consistent. The water surface is going to be fairly calm, especially if you're swimming indoors. So there's this real consistency about it. You know what you're going to get every time. After you've done that a few times, you start to get used to how far away the end of the pool is going to be and how much energy it takes to do X amount of laps, and kind of things can be more, the distances are complete. You know if you're going to do 20 laps, then you get okay, and if if that's what you want to do, you know how much energy it takes, and you kind of walk away. Before you get there, you know what it's going to be like, and when you're doing it, you know how it feels, and when you leave, you know what you've done. Whereas when you get to ocean swimming, it's a very dynamic environment. It's in nature, and things are just are different every time. So, all the elements that comes at play at the beach can change within the day, within the hour, within a race. And so you need to be prepared for them. You need to feel comfortable in that environment, and you need to know how to use it to your advantage. And things don't always go the way that you were thinking they were going to go, and you need to be able to adapt and kind of move with it. So it's a very dynamic environment.
And even during the swim on the weekend, the conditions were relatively benign compared to what I've seen at Bondi before. But even during the swim, the wind picked up, the southerly came in right at the end, and the swell was quite a lot bigger at the end of the race than it was at the start, which is good for me because I'm pretty lousy in the waves. It changed on the day, I think.
Yeah, I was watching that actually in the 2K race. It was it kind of came through, and the guys out the front, they got away with it a little bit because they were ahead of the front coming through, but the back markers definitely got more of it. And especially down at South Bondi there, it's more exposed, and you tend to get a bit more swell in there. The wind can get in there a bit more as well, and all of a sudden that can change just what it feels like to be in the water. Now you're bobbing up and down. Now you've got a chop coming, and you can start to, if you're getting a bit tired towards the end of the swim, and that happens, that's where you can kind of just go, I'm just actually working on getting to the end. Whereas if you can work on your mental skills and think about, all right, the wind's got up, what am I going to do now to make my swimming more efficient in this environment, and how can I get through this, in a much more efficient way. For example, if you were breathing to the right on your way back to North Bondi, well, maybe you'd want to switch around and breathe to your left so that you kind of create a wind shadow and have calmer water on your left-hand side. And then you'd be getting a bit of a bump as you go. So maybe if you were, short stroking a little bit too much, and it felt like you were swimming over top of every single chop, you might want to, just glide out a bit more and see if you can cut the top off or the chop on the way back. So, there's little things that you can work on, and when those things happen, if you know what to look for, how to feel it, and then how to adapt to it, it's going to make you a much better ocean swimmer.
How do you get that feel? Is it just experience? Is there any way you can do this in a pool, or do you really need to get down to the beach every week and practice?
Yeah, the easiest way I can explain this, and this is one of the first things that we teach in our ocean swimming clinics, I call it the 4 pillars of Ocean Fit, and it kind of explains within these 4 pillars what it takes to be an ocean swimmer. People come and they want the silver bullet. They think, I'm a swimmer, well, I can just throw myself in the ocean and, just keep spinning me up my arms. But I break it down into 4 pillars, and they are basically knowledge. So developing your ocean awareness, actually understanding how the ocean works, how it can change, what's going on, and really, really understanding that. And that's something that everyone can learn because, it's theory, and once you understand that, you can put that away in the back of your mind, and it's there to be recalled when you're out swimming, or even before you get in. The second pillar is around your skills. So we all come with different level of swimming ability, and that's a very, very broad range. In fact, some people who say they're good swimmers might only be able to swim, 4 laps in a pool, and some people that say they're good swimmers are, ex-triathletes or, competitive swimmers. So it's a very broad range, but your swimming skills are going to be at the base of that. And then we learn our, ocean swimming skills. How do we adapt our swimming to the ocean environment so that we're much more efficient? And then with the knowledge of, what's happening out there, how can we use our skills, in that environment in the moment? But then, like you were saying, it comes down to experience as well, which is the third pillar. You're developing your surf sense, which is really that kind of sixth sense you have about what's happening, and being able to, people talk about feeling the water, just being able to feel what's happening, feel the movement, feel the currents, feel the ebb and flow, and just being able to know what that feeling represents, what's then happening, and then being able to adapt your skills, to that environment. And then the fourth pillar, if you were wondering what that was, is our mental skills pillar. So, you can have all the knowledge in the world about how the ocean works. You can have all the skills and swimming ability. You can have been out in the ocean a lot and kind of develop that surf sense. But if you don't have that kind of courage and positivity and belief in your ability, and kind of trust, and that ability to manage your anxiety, things can start to, control starts to be lost. So, mental skills is all about staying in control, backing yourself, making sure that you can, the decisions you're making because you understand the ocean and how it works. You know that you've got the skills to swim in that environment. You've done it before, and now it's just putting it all together. So those 4 pillars, when it comes to ocean swimming, it starts to sound like, gee, I thought I was just going to be jumping in the water and swimming around the buoys at the North Forsyth Classic, but, in actual fact, you can actually, put a lot of things together if you really want to be an ocean swimmer.
The mental skills one is interesting because it's not, I guess it's not necessarily the first thing you think of when you think of a physical activity, but I mean, I can empathize with it. You could be a kilometre off the coast and the swell's up and you go, geez, this is a bit tough, and you're tired, and learning to sort of trust your ability and trust your training is that is something that takes a little bit of experience, isn't it?
Oh, definitely. And I've had people coming to see me and have been swimming with me in the mornings for years, and and every now and again they'll still have a moment, and that's that can be related to a lot of things. It might be things that are happening outside of swimming, that's clogging their mind up, and they're just not quite they don't quite have enough of that mindset right in that moment to deal with a big set of waves coming through, or a stronger wind coming that they're having to swim through, and sometimes it can be just, I just can't do this anymore, and that's where when you've got support, like if I'm swimming beside someone, I can encourage them and get them going. But if you're swimming by yourself, or you're going out for your own ocean swim with someone else, that may be one of those things that can set you back. And I just go all the way back to the control. We always want to keep one step ahead of the ocean, because it's this powerful beast, and it's going to keep doing what it's doing. It's not going to stop and say, hang on, oh, it's all right, Andre, I'll just leave a few sets free for you, and we'll have a big lull until you get your breath back, and dial the wind down just until you're ready, and then we'll let you go. Those waves are going to keep coming. The wind's going to keep blowing, and you need to really work on that.
The other end of that is that it can be quite meditating. I mean, it's quite a nice treatment of anxiety, isn't it? It helps if you get into a bit of a rhythm, you're breathing properly, you're surrounded by a buoyant, nice and cool environment. It's quite good for managing anxiety if you don't let it overcome you.
Oh, absolutely. And while I'm not, I'm not the best person to talk to about, how the ocean makes me feel, but I have plenty of clients that come to me, and the best stories that I have is that when they feel like they've overcome a fear of the ocean, or a real strong anxiety with the ocean, all of a sudden it's, well, if I can feel confident in this crazy, big, powerful natural beast out there, you know, and I'm happy out there and I'm in control, all these other things that are happening in my life just pale in comparison anymore. So it really kind of gets people into that space where they're like, wow, you know, I'm out here swimming in this wild ocean that I never ever thought I would ever do, and now, you know, when something's going on at home or work, they're like, oh, well, I just swam out the back of Bondi and across the bay and came back in, you know, and very, very few people in the world will ever do that.
Yeah.
So yeah, it's very, very liberating.
Yeah.
And in fact, I've done 2 really big surveys, and I've had over 2,000 responses, and I think it was 2015 and 16. And one of the questions was around, you know, why do you get into ocean swimming? And overwhelmingly, the biggest response was about the freedom. This whole idea that you're just unlocking yourself from, you know, the black line, you're getting away from technology, you know, everything that you can think of, noise, everything. And when you're out in the ocean, you're just free. And I think that's really powerful.
That's a really good point. And it's quite interesting because you can feel that freedom and then still be surrounded by 100 people. It's something about the environment. And that's an interesting idea. Like at North Bondi, I don't think I was ever swimming by myself because there were, I don't know, 800 people in the race or something. And it was, you know, it was quite hustle and bustle at times. But the week before at Maroubra, I was swimming by myself for a lot of it. And you do get a bit of a different feeling. It's quite, Maroubra was interesting because the swell was much higher. And I find sighting quite difficult. And swimming on my own, not quite knowing where I was going, that's a different experience.
Yeah, sighting's it's a really interesting one because you really want to do it as least as possible because it's definitely not an efficient stroke or technique. But you know, you're trying to have a look up and look forward within one breathing cycle. You know, and I kind of break it down. Every time I break something down and teach a technique, it's into its smallest parts. You know, so at the start of our recovery and breath, you know, we're bringing our eyes up, and we really only want to bring our eyes up enough to get them just out of the water to have a peak before really rolling our head to the side again and finishing the breathing stroke to the side. It's very hard to explain just talking about it, but I guess there's some other things that you can think of to make sighting more efficient. You know, when you're in a rolling swell, like you said you were at Maroubra, making sure that, you know, if you're looking for buoys out in the water, that you feel the water and wait till a swell rolls underneath you and you're on the crest of a swell, and then take a look, because then you're going to be higher up in the ocean, you're going to get a good look across the water, and it's going to be, you know, a much more efficient use of that time, because every time you lift your head swimming, your lower body wants to drop. So then you create more friction in the water, and that fatigues you faster, makes you use more energy. And in fact, you need to learn how to sight efficiently, because a lot of people swim with their heads up. And when they're in the ocean, so they don't do it when they're in the pool because they're following the black line. But then when they transfer to the ocean, they just kind of always want to keep their eye as if, you know, something's going to catch them out, or they don't quite know where they're going. So they tend to swim with their head up a little bit too much. Their legs drop, they tire. You know, but if you can really learn to sight, which is a little bit hard to talk about, it's going to make it a lot more efficient for you out there. How often do you sight? Well, when you're going out through the waves, you really want to do it as often as possible, because there's just so much coming at you, and you need to, you know, just swimming out through a wave, you'd be looking at, when you do one little look in front, you're looking at, you know, how far away is the next wave? How fast is it coming? What stage is it in of breaking? Where am I likely to meet it, and what stage of breaking is it likely to be in when I get to it? And then what am I going to do? How early am I going to start diving? How long am I going to have to stay under? And when am I going to come up after it? So there's actually quite a lot to think about, and it sometimes can overwhelm people about how much you actually need to think about when you're ocean swimming. So you do it a lot when you're on your way out the surf, but when you're out in open water, you really only need to be sighting as often as you need to stay straight. So if you're a straight swimmer, you know, maybe every 8 breaths might be okay. But then you also need to think about, well, what other elements are at play here that might take me off course? You know, is the swell rolling in a lot, and am I swimming across the swell? So is that pushing me in, or which direction's the wind blowing, and how much is that going to push me off course? That's the more I talk about it, the more I realise how much thought goes into every stroke and every every leg of the swim. And quite interestingly, I still can't believe how little amount of buoys are used in ocean swim races.
No, I know some races and I'm not great at sighting. I've got no idea where I'm headed. I mean, most of the time I'm not going to be ever leading a race, so I can follow the guy next to me most of the time.
Yeah.
But yeah, they don't use a lot of buoys in a lot of races, do they?
No, and I still don't quite understand that. And they also use some really interesting buoys as well, which are the cones, but all the bulk of them are at the bottom when people are really looking as high as possible to see what's going on. So before a race, it's always a good idea to check out the course, check out which way the wind's blowing, and and on each leg, how's that wind going to affect you? If you're swimming straight off the beach and the wind's going left to right, making sure that you do start heading off to the left a little bit to account for that wind pushing your back to the right of the buoy. Can you find some landmarks along the course that you can use instead of looking for the buoys? But like you were saying, unless you're in the front, most people just follow the person in front of them, which is quite interesting. You can learn all the skills, and at the end of the day, you just put your head down and follow the person in front.
Yeah, that's right. Well, I know Malabar on the weekend usually put big balloons on their buoys, which is good because they're quite high in the air, so you can actually see them from a long way away.
Yeah, that's a great idea.
Yeah, I think that works out quite well. And I guess the other obvious big difference with ocean swimming is, you kind of talked about it already, but the waves and getting out through the waves, and that can be quite difficult and quite confronting. I find it difficult because you can swim, and then if you don't do it right, you stop and you end up vertical, and then you're just going up and down, not really making any distance. That's something I've got a lot of. I find quite difficult.
Yeah, and it even starts well before you get in the water. So, being able to get down to the beach and actually watch and observe the waves before you get in. And a lot of the work of ocean swimming is done before you even get in the water. So, getting down to the beach and watching for 10 minutes, and looking for patterns, how many waves are coming through in the sets, how long are the lulls, how far apart are the waves, how much energy's in the waves, which means, how fast are they moving towards you, because, that could be different. How, depending on the tide, how are they breaking? Does it look like they're coming in nice and gently and spilling? Does it look like they are hitting shallow sandbanks and dumping? And just kind of getting a feel for how those waves are coming through. And then kind of in the back of your mind, you can actually, think about it and go, look, if I went in right now, what would I do? How fast would these waves be coming at me? How fast would my reaction times need to be? How deep would I be needing to get under these waves? You can kind of just mentally swim out through the waves and over the sandbar while you're watching. And then it really comes down to timing, staying relaxed. And then the stop-start technique that you were talking about there is very common. A lot of it comes down to, people not being able to see what's coming. So they're kind of keeping their head down, and by the time they see what's coming, it's too late. There's a lot of hesitation comes into it. And, they think, I'll just dive underwater here. And then they come up and, depending on how long they've been under the water, to them it might seem like they've been under for, 30 seconds, but the reality is they've probably been under for, 2 or 3 seconds. But now they've come back to the surface, they're treading water, getting their breath back. But the chances are they've come up a little bit too early, and they've kind of been pushed back a little bit. And now they kind of, for the rest of that set, you kind of just, stay in the same spot, and you've given the control over to the ocean. So the waves are coming at you, and you're waiting for them, trying to dive under, and every dive you do is a little bit shallower than the last one. And that's funny enough where the mental skills come into it. It's like, if you had looked for patterns earlier, maybe you knew there were 4 or 5 waves in a set. And so once you had dived under the first wave, you're right, okay, 4 more to go. Dived under the second wave, 3 more to go. In the back of your mind, you're staying a lot more positive because in 5 waves' time, there's a good chance I'm going to have a lull or, whatever pattern that you've found there. Is that how you feel, where you just kind of stay on the spot and, for whatever reason, you're not getting deep enough, or you're not staying under long enough, and you kind of get stuck on the spot?
Yeah, like that. So it's only when the waves are, I've done a few swims now, so it's only when the waves are really big that that I do get that feeling. But that's pretty much it. And it's the same coming in as well. I think, I mean, obviously when you're coming in, you're being helped, but then if you can't quite catch the wave and you go over the back of it and then it breaks and then you get the swell pulling you back out again, you kind of got that same sort of feeling. You feel like you're swimming against the current. So coming in can be quite difficult as well. I imagine that's a slightly different technique.
Yeah, it is. So on the way out, you know, instead of the stop start, you really just want to keep swimming. And so we teach the swim dive swim technique, which is, you know, just being able to continue swimming, see the wave coming, leave an arm out in front of you, bring the other one over, and take your freestyle stroke down into a dive, staying under the water nice and streamlined, coming back up gradually, and then, you know, swimming straight away. And the idea is that when you're going through the surf, you just want to keep swimming. You've got to keep going. You've got to take on the ocean, take on the waves, get down and keep moving. Similarly, on the way back, the keys for coming back through the surf, and interestingly enough, I reckon it's about 50-50 people who are more afraid of coming back towards the beach, you know, than they are going out into the waves. Because when you're going out, you can kind of see the waves, so you can, for the most part, you can see what's coming at you. But for some reason, people that come back to the beach, they just put their head down and kind of carry on towards the shore. You know, and they might look back every now and again. But if I'm swimming back in through the surf, I'm looking under my shoulder as I breathe pretty much every breath, because I just want to continually see what's coming. So that's probably the number one technique for coming back through the surf. It's just keep an eye on the waves. See where you are. Are you moving from what I would call the offshore zone into the break zone? So on the way in through the surf, you'd be looking forward. You'd be sighting forward to see, you know, where are the waves breaking in front of you? Where does the break zone look like? You know, is there lots of white water in front of you to kind of give you that idea that, you know, you're on a sandbank? I'd be looking back all the time under my shoulder going, you know, what's coming towards me? What does that wave look like? Does it look like it's going to be, you know, round when it gets to me? Does it look like it's going to be breaking when it gets to me? And then I can start to make decisions as I move from the offshore zone into the break zone. You know, am I going to try and catch these waves? Are they in that kind of stage that I can try and, you know, swim harder to get on them? Or, you know, does one look like the one that's coming behind me right now? Does it look like it's going to dump on me? And if it does, you know, I can go into more of a defensive strategy, which is stop, turn around, face it head on so you can see what's coming, dive under it, come back up on the other side of it, and then straight away start moving back towards the beach. And at the same time, straight away looking back behind you and looking forward again, you know, and just keep going, because often the break zone where the waves are actually breaking or, you know, they could be dumping or they could be just large spilling waves, that's the kind of part where the most energy is in the wave. And that's the zone you want to get through as fast as possible. So again, like the way out, it's the same mantra, just keep swimming. You've got to keep going. And once you're past the break zone, then you can kind of relax a bit, knowing that, you know, all the energy in those breaking waves is behind you, and you can kind of ride the whitewashing.
There's been sort of talk in various forums on ocean swimming etiquette, whether you should draft on the back of somebody and you know, stopping near buoys and breaststroking and all the rest of it. Have you got any thoughts on ocean swimming etiquette?
Yeah, this is a very interesting one. I'm kind of on both sides, to be honest. I think there's something beautiful about ocean swimming just being unregulated, and you know, and a whole bunch of people from, you know, different backgrounds all stripped down into their swimsuit and, you know, cap. I like the idea that, you know, we all wear a cap that tells us our age, so you pretty much sit on the start line, you've got everything hanging out and you've got your age on your head. There's something magic about that. It kind of brings everyone into the same level, and I like that. But then also we have different groups of people that are involved. We've got, you know, people who are just doing it just for a casual organised swim. They may not have swum that far out or that distance if it wasn't, you know, for an organised swim. We've got different ages and abilities. And then we've also got, you know, competitors out there. We've got a lot of triathletes. We've got a lot of age group swimmers and competitive swimmers that are there. Open water swimming itself is taking off. from more of a swimming point of view. So the Olympics has now got 5 and 10K open water swims, and there's not too many of those around. So a lot of the people that are competing in that level of sport are doing ocean swims. So, it's very hard to manage all these lot. Personally, I don't like around the swimming boys. It's always a tricky one. I definitely don't like breaststrokers around the boys. It's you can get a very good thump in the head. I prefer people, that were just taking their time and weren't after kind of any competitive element to take it a little bit wider. Drafting, personally, I love drafting. I would do it often. I don't like the idea that someone's always touching your feet all the time, but normally the people that are drafting are doing it off each other anyway. So they kind of just take it. One day they'll be getting their foot tapped, the other day they'll be tapping someone else's. We teach drafting at Ocean Fit. It kind of makes people feel like they're a little bit of an athlete for a moment, I think. At the end of the day, if you wouldn't like it done to you, don't do it to someone else. I don't think it's happening really between the people that are just doing it for enjoyment. I think it would really be happening between the people who are more competitive. It's drafting. It happens in cycling, it happens in triathlon, and it's a legitimate strategy at the pointy end.
Yeah, I'm actually not sure at my pace, sort of in the middle of the pack, whether there's any benefit to it, because there's so much whitewater and behind people, and I'm not really sure you'd be getting a great deal of benefit from it unless you're really going quickly, and it probably wouldn't save me an awful lot of time, I wouldn't have thought.
Yeah, well, I mean, there's two strategies that you can do if you do want to draft. So those people out there who are drafting enthusiasts or looking at getting into it, you need to find someone who's swimming faster. So you either have to, within your wave, take off at the start as fast as you can to get on the feet of someone who's a lot faster than you, or you need to, when you're swimming out in your wave, you need to wait for the wave behind you, and you try and catch the faster feet of the people that are coming past, because you need to be drafting someone who's at least 10-20% faster than you.
Yep.
To make it, and that'll keep you swimming at your same pace, but you'll actually just be getting pulled along faster. So for you, it'll feel like you're swimming the same pace, but your actual real pace will be a lot faster. You'd never want to draft off someone that's the same pace as you, because you would just feel like you would have to slow down your stroke, you'd have to slow down your pace, and you'd just feel like you were being lazy.
Yeah, oh, that's interesting. If you reckon you could get that much benefit out of it.
Oh, absolutely. And that's why, the toe tapping happens mainly because, to get right in the channel behind, because basically the person in front is breaking the surface tension of the water, similar to a truck driving down the road, and they're breaking the surface area of the water. You get these little, the little eddies start to curl on either side of you, and if you sit in those little eddies, you're going to get pulled along. So, but if you are drafting, the chances are you're trying to swim at a very, normal pace for you, but because you're getting pulled along, you're actually, going a little bit faster, and you end up tagging the legs. So it is very hard to stay behind someone and not touch the legs, because if you're not touching the legs, you're probably not close enough. But you definitely will get a huge benefit from it.
Yeah, and there's certainly a bit of, I can remember my very first ocean swim, which was the Cole Classic in, I don't know, maybe 2010, 2011. And that physical nature of the swim was probably the first big surprise. I guess if I'd thought it through, it would have been obvious, but it was pretty physical. You get some pretty head-kicking races in the big ones like the Cole.
Yeah, anytime you get that many people in the water in that kind of confined space, and people are swimming all different directions, and we were talking about sighting earlier. When people start swimming, they're all off in all different directions at all different speeds, and people catching up to others. It's just inevitable that you're going to roll over, and I don't know what the answer is, but when you've got people that are trying to go for the fastest time, against their mates or against to try and win. People are going to be trying to go fast, but some people are going to want to cruise. I don't think culturally people are really going out there to hurt anyone. interesting enough, I think the ocean swimming the origins of ocean swimming in Australia especially came through surf life saving. And if you look back in the way that surf races used to be raced, so basically the ocean swims of surf life saving, they were brutal back in the day. So this is, swimming with your fists closed around the buoys and, pulling the swimsuits. And there would be elements of that still now in the male surf races for sure. I'm sure even in the female races they would be, they'd be pretty brutal, because if you've got people at speed converging on a buoy, and if you need the inside alley to get the benefit, you're going to do whatever it takes to get in there. So that's been in surf life saving and surf races, for 100 years. So and surf, ocean swimming came out of that, and maybe there's some of that there, but I think it's just that natural. If you're out there trying to get the line, you're gonna find it.
Yeah.
I mean, even in water polo these days, they talk about how aggressive water polo is. And
have you ever seen? You got to see some underwater footage from water polo. It's pretty brutal.
Yeah, I'm like, they're all wearing cozies that are 4 times too small for them to make sure that hands can't get in there. And man, ocean swimming's not alone in that kind of aggression. And maybe it's a sporting cultural thing. Maybe it's an Australian thing that just that competitiveness in there. Look, I wouldn't know whether it happens in other countries.
Yeah, I mean, in my experience, for the most part, it's pretty good. It's only ever around the buoys if you're being caught by the wave behind you. Really, I don't think I've ever really had any problems in my wave, because everyone's about the same pace. And if you're being caught and you're a long way between buoys, then typically, the leaders or those guys catching you will kind of go around you. It's not that much of a problem. It's only when you're trying to get that inside line, I think. Which is interesting.
Yeah.
And
if the first buoy is really close to the start, then that can pose a problem. It's a lot nicer when the first turning buoy is, quite far away, because that gives everyone time to spread out.
It's always quite funny in those sorts of races where you're swimming along, you're on your own for a while, and then by the time you hit your buoy, there's 100 people around you, because because no one can swim straight, and then everybody converges when they finally see the buoy and try to get around it. And so I wanted to ask you about your career. You've got a pretty long career in water safety, which culminates in writing some water safety documents for a Saudi prince. I guess we'll get to that, but what's the journey to that point? You've done a lot of water safety education.
Yeah, well, I grew up in a small town in New Zealand called Gisborne. It's the first city to see the sun. It's a bit of a surf town, so we're just surrounded by beaches, and I grew up, swimming and surf life saving and lifeguarding and sailing and fishing and, just about anything that you can think of to do with water I was involved in. And I kind of took a liking to instructing and teaching all those things as well. So I did that, taught swimming, taught sailing, taught surf life saving, became a lifeguard, started working for surf life saving at the same time, and then took those skills around the world. So I worked in the UK and US and Canada and Croatia, and enjoyed just going off, and it was a great, when you've got all those skills, they're really well in demand around the world. So it was a great little lifestyle for a few years.
You're clearly not against swimming it's pretty cold places there. You're clearly not against swimming in cold ocean.
Yeah, no. Well, admittedly, when I was in Canada, I was in the pool. It's probably the most interesting thing I did in Canada was get into teaching aqua aerobics for some older ladies. So
okay.
I used to love that. I used to love getting the cakes. Every time I took a lesson, I'd get a cake.
Oh, fantastic.
So, I just had to do an extra couple of swim sessions that day to make sure I could
burn it off.
Burn it off. Yeah. And even then I was working on the ski hills as well, working in the first aid huts and kind of moving from fluid water to ice, and it's all very much the same. But yeah, that was interesting. And then when I moved to Australia, I started working for Surf Life Saving Australia, which was really interesting. I lived above the Icebergs building, and then I worked in the Icebergs building, and I spent all my leisure time at the beach. So they talk about the Bondi bubble. I literally had probably 100-metre
That's brilliant, though.
radius, for 3 years. So that was really good. And yeah, I've worked on a lot of the programs, wrote all the NIPA resources for age managers. So that was a really big project at the time, and a lot of those are still being used around the country, trying to transition, a lot of the things that I had been teaching myself through my teaching career, and kind of channeling that into those kind of resources. Did some leadership programs, and eventually became the lifeguard manager, the national lifeguard manager, and my role there was to really bring together the industry, because at the time, surf life saving, there was this kind of big divide between surf life saving and the council lifeguards and their association. And the idea, and I'm this kind of dreamer who thinks that everyone should just get along, and we should all be aiming towards the same single goal. So I really enjoyed that side of it, trying to bring everyone together, getting surf life saving, bringing the lifeguards into their vernacular, and sharing ideas and working together so that life saving or lifeguarding is more efficient on the beaches, and we're sharing all the knowledge that there's just so much of it around here. So that was very interesting. When I finished up there, I had started and delivered 10 issues of the Australian Lifeguard magazine, which was probably one of my most enjoyable outcomes from that time. It was the first time any surf life saving publication had lifeguards in it.
Okay.
So yeah, that was pretty cool.
Does that still exist?
So it does still exist. Yeah. So they do one issue a year, and it really kind of just showcases all the best work that's happening with the Australian Lifeguard Service and Council Lifeguards and surf life saving in general. And it's really interesting now where they're getting into, because it's, technology has taken off, and we're seeing a lot more technology become a part of everyday lifeguarding. We're getting, really good data and knowledge being shared online. We've got the drones coming, and, they did their first rescue the other day, so it'll be interesting to see where that goes
amazing.
as well.
Yeah.
Yeah, lots more rescue equipment, like remote controlled, rescue tubes and all sorts of things that, I remember even when I was working there, things used to come over the desk. Every week someone had created some new, innovative rescue product, and, some of them would just never make the cut. But, with technology moving the way it is, it's going to be really interesting in that space.
Okay, that's interesting. And so when did you end up writing something for a Saudi Arabian prince?
Yeah, so it was actually when I finished up at Surf Life Saving, but I got the call to kind of help out with the project. They'd been approached by the Saudi Arabian Swimming Association, which basically over there's hundreds of princes, and at the time I was kind of starstruck about, whoa, he's a prince wanting to talk to me on Skype. So basically, yeah, the prince that I dealt with was one of the things that he looked after was water safety and swimming, and they really wanted to tackle the drowning issue that they had over there. But they kind of needed to know where to start, and they approached Surf Life Saving Australia, who got me on board, and essentially I went over there and conducted an investigation of the situation, and it was very interesting. I remember lining up on the plane in Dubai to fly there, and I was wearing the suit, and I was where am I going? And I got picked up and by this lovely guy, and spent a few weeks looking around all the waterways there, the beaches. They've got some fantastic facilities over there, but they were hardly being used. They still have the issues around segregation between males and females. And so, people were drowning in puddles when it rained too much. It was really interesting. They have the same issues as any other country, really. People are lack of understanding, a lot of ignorance around water, and no one at the time seemed to be really doing anything about it. So that was the start of that journey. So we put together a 5-year plan to get them on the road, and it seems to be taking it on one step at a time.
Oh, cool. And now you're running your own thing with OceanFit. Yeah,
OceanFit's it started back in 2009, and that was on the back of the work that I was doing at Surf Life Saving at the time around nippers and just I could see ocean swimming as a sport was starting to really take off. But when you are in the surf life saving kind of world, it's a very committed space to be in. When if you want to learn to ocean swim or get confident in the ocean, if you approach surf life saving or a surf club, they're basically going to say, well, can you swim 400 meters under 9 minutes? And we'll teach you it, but you have to become a lifesaver. So you had to commit a lot just to be taught how to ocean swim or be confident in the ocean. So it just really wasn't an option for lots of people, and there really weren't that many entry points to gaining that knowledge. And Nippers on the same accord Nippers is it's a great program. It's been around for a long time, but it's not for everyone. It's a mass teaching model. You get hundreds of kids down there. You get age managers and parents all around, and they trying their best to get these kids excited about the water and get them in the water. But I kind of saw this opportunity there to offer more of a kind of premium model, I guess, smaller group sizes, real personal training, and that's where OceanFit came from, really, offering kids and adults an entry point where they could come, get really good skills and knowledge through small groups or one-on-one lessons, and then just take those skills and go off and do whatever they want, develop their own ocean lifestyle, which we all enjoy.
Yeah, because there aren't too many, even pool swimming. Adult squads exist, but it's not always. You offer from entry level through to a bit more advanced. It's not easy to find adult entry level sporting things, really.
No, and even just swimming alone, some parts of the country have got fantastic swimming facilities. You go to the Gold Coast and there's there's an outdoor 50-metre swimming pool every second block, along the strip there. And I'm always very jealous of that living in Sydney because I think we've got a massive population here, but we've got very few pools. So there's and the competition for space in those pools is fierce, especially at any time that anyone is going to want to get in there. So it's very hard. People ask me for stroke correction, or where can I go to learn this, or can I go to a beginner squad somewhere? And I'm like, well, they're few and far between. And even in ocean swimming, there's lots of groups out there, and we've got a really good list of them on our website. If you look for ocean swimming groups, and there's lots of social swimming groups out there, and we've got a lot of people that, and I think in ocean swimming, there's a lot of people that go ocean swimming because they can swim, but they don't necessarily, and they have a good time, and they go swimming, and they'll keep to the smaller conditions, and they'll enjoy it. And you don't really need that many skill. You don't need to learn that much, just to have a really good, have a low level go at it. It's really if you want to really understand what's going on and become much more efficient in the open water, or you want to really make sure that you're getting out of it what you should be getting out of it, that you'll come and get lessons and kind of develop yourself. I wrote a blog a while ago that was quite well received around, you just don't know what you don't know.
Well, that's it for this edition of The Pod. My name is Mark West, and thanks very much to Andre for taking the time to have a chat. If you'd like any more information on OceanFit or anything you heard in this episode, get over to our website at www.thepodpodcast.net. That's www.thepodpodcast.net. Thanks very much. I'll catch you next time.